D&D is a very complicated game with a lot of variables, and that's something that's amazing about the game. The randomness, the unpredictability that it creates, just like, a situation would be like in real life. But, from someone that's trying to balance the game, that creates a lot of complications because you have to take into consider so many different variables. Resistances, immunities, actions, bonus actions, subclasses, classes, creatures, the list goes on and on. Spells, magic items really mess it up too. So it's no surprise that there are some overpowered parts to D&D, and today we're going to talk about which subclasses are very overpowered. My name's Colby from Excited Cave. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, of course. Let's get into it with the first one. Okay, so there are a lot of subclasses here. How do I even decide which ones are overpowered? Well, for this video, I'm really going to be considering combat as the biggest factor on what is overpowered. If we were considering ability checks, to be honest, they would all be bard subclasses because bards are, everyone knows bards are just amazing at everything. So we're just going to look at combat here. Some of this is from my own experience, some of it is just kind of knowing about all the subclasses. My buddy Philip and I have actually made videos ranking almost every subclass in the game, so make sure to check those out. I think there'd be a little link in the corner up there with a link to the playlist. Check those out after this video, and let's get into the first one here. Forge Domain. So my first campaign, I played with a Forge Domain, and this is a really great example of why high spellcasters should not get heavy armor. There are ways to get it for every spellcaster, of course. You can take a feat. You do need a certain level of strength, so kind of unfortunate to use it, but the Cleric domain is... the Forge domain is absolutely incredible. Starting off with its spell list, you have Heat Metal, you have Searing Smite, you have Wall of Fire, Animate Objects, which are all really good. But again, it's that heavy armor proficiency that really brings it over the top, as well as Blessing the Forge, which increases your AC even more. You then later on also get resistance and then immunity to fire damage, which is the most common magical damage type in the game. So you're even more of a tank at that point. And yeah, this really just comes down to how tanky you can make this spellcaster. One of the best ways to balance things in D&D, balance like high-level spellcasters because they're so strong, is you're not able to have a very high AC. You're not putting many points into Constitution, so they're fairly weak and vulnerable to kind of the melee or ranged physical people that are trying to shoot at them. This takes out all of those disadvantages, to be honest, makes it a complete tank and very hard to kill. So Forge Domain is absolutely the first one here, and one of the coolest things that actually happened in that campaign is because they're immune to fire and they have spells like Wall of Fire, they can just make walls of fire and walk. One of the most intimidating and cool things that can happen in a campaign. So no surprise, Forge Domain is the first one. Let's move on to the next one. When it comes to playing a Warlock, it's no surprise one of the subclasses is powerful. Like being a person that kind of has a deity that gives its power, you'd expect that one of those deities is a little bit broken. And for Warlock, the deity that's broken, in my opinion, is Genie. Fiend is also kind of a honorary person that could possibly be OP, but we're going to talk about Genie today. Starting off with its spell list. The spell lists are great, and the amount of choice that you have as a Genie Warlock is incredible. Being able to have, being able to have spells locked just being a Genie, then being able to choose from 4 different elements that kind of define you as a Genie Warlock is absolutely incredible. I love the choice that it offers. That doesn't really make it overpowered now, does it? That just gives options. So let's talk about some of the overpowered features of the Genie Warlock, starting with its vessel. It's not overpowered yet. Essentially, you have your little vessel that you can go into, which is very nice. It can be a variety of different things. I played with the Genie Warlock and the ring, which is a really good thing to use because it's very small and you can just give it to your players. It's also very inconspicuous. Depending on kind of the world you're living in, if you literally have a genie lamp, kind of looks like a genie might be in it and someone might be interested in a large vessel like that. But if you choose a small one, you can make this even more overpowered. Inside of there, it's like your own space. You can hang out in there. You can do your long rests in there. Basically have protection while you're in there. And what really makes this overpowered is its later level ability. So you get a flying speed as a bonus action at level 6. Plus, at level 6, you get resistance to your genie's element. So if you chose fire, that's definitely the most overpowered way you can go at this as a warlock. But just getting that flying speed is incredible. You get a flying speed of, I think it said 30 at level 6 as a warlock with Eldritch Blast and a range of like probably 300 feet, or it's 120 feet if you don't have that Eldritch invocation. Is just very, very powerful. And then it gets even more broken where you can go inside your vessel, you can bring 5 other people, and your short rests only take 10 minutes as well. So, you know, as a DM, one of the biggest tools being able to limit your players is inside of a dungeon is that a short rest takes a full hour. There's a lot that can happen in it. But in 10 minutes, if everyone's inside a little ring that's just sitting like in a corridor, how many people are going to notice a little ring? Maybe they'll pick it up, whatever, they'll put it on. Later on, up to 6 people just come out of the ring and start attacking you, and they have full health now because they had a short rest. Not to mention your short rests are also more efficient now because everyone can add their proficiency modifier. Not a huge amount, doesn't make it overpowered for sure, but it's really just that time reduction to 10 minutes that is really good. And then finally, limited wish, being able to wish to cast any spell of 6th level or lower is insane for options. It is a little bit balanced because you have a longer recharge rate. You get to roll a d4 and that says number of long rests until you can use it again. But still, when you're in a pinch and you need to use a spell and you can use it up to 6th level, that can come in handy real quick. So this is very much broken just for its vessel idea. And let's move on to the next one. The next subclass we're going to go over is one I'm actually playing right now in a longer campaign. And I've played before in a one-shot and I absolutely love playing it. And that is the College of Lore Bard. Where are you? There you are. Oops. Absolutely overpowered. And the reason for that is the ultimate spellcaster or spell bard. It honestly might be the ultimate spellcaster in the game. That's probably up to debate. So first off, you get some proficiencies. You get 3 extra proficiencies as a bard, as if you didn't have enough, but we're talking about combat. So what makes this overpowered? Well, one ability, cutting words. So cutting words gives you another option for your bardic inspiration dice. You can essentially use it as a reaction for anyone within 60 feet of you, whether they're trying to pass an ability check or a saving throw, and minus the bardic inspiration dice roll from the result. And what's very overpowered about it is you can use it. You can cast a spell, like let's say you want to do hold person. You want to make sure that hold person lands, because the thing about spells like hold person, those kind of ability checks, is if they pass it, well, you just use your action. You didn't waste it, but like it doesn't feel good because you didn't pass, right? So that sucks. So you cast hold person. They get an 18. Okay, you immediately know that doesn't pass. Your save DC is 17. But you can still use your reaction to use cutting words and bring it below 17 to make sure that they fail that saving throw. And like hold person is a very, it's not a very high level spell. You can use other spells that would absolutely destroy the person and ensure that they fail it with the Bardic Inspiration die. Not to mention, you can use this on if someone's making an attack on your friend. Just use use cutting words and stop it. And you probably know your friend's AC where that's going to be around, so it doesn't really matter that you can't say it after the DM has deemed if it's going to be a hit or not. So just cutting words is overpowered by itself. The College of Lore also gets more spells at level 6 that you can choose from any spell in the game. Super helpful. And then eventually you can add Bardic Inspiration to ability checks. Not combat based, but again, still very helpful. But really it's that cutting words that can be used after you yourself cast a spell or to save one of your friends from being attacked. That is so very, very helpful. So the College of Lore is absolutely up there. Okay, now we're getting into some of the most commonly known overpowered subclasses in the game. And we're going to start with the Totem Warrior. The Totem Warrior's overpoweredness, not a word, using it anyways. Overpoweredness is so simple. Just being a bear Totem Warrior allows you to basically double your health, getting resistance to everything except Psychic, but who cares? Psychic is not that much of a common damage dealing type, so the simplicity of it is just the resistances. This is going to be a quick one, to be honest. We all know that resistance is incredible, and a bear Totem Warrior makes an incredible tank. On top of those, you get all of the extra features. And after you obviously choose the 3rd level one, at the other later levels you can choose also great options to enhance yourself further. So what do you think the most overpowered stealth character? Probably a rogue, right? Rogues are made for that kind of stealth. Well, kind of recently, not really recently, Wizard of the Coast released the Gloomstalker, which absolutely puts the Assassin Rogue to shame. It is the best stealth subclass in the game. Let's look into why it's so overpowered. Starting with its spell list. Not really that overpowered. The spell list is fine. Where they have greater invisibility, which is super helpful as a ranger. But other than that, the spell list is great. Rope Trick's helpful, but that isn't what makes it overpowered. Let's look at its level 3 feature. The Wisdom modifier that you get to initiative is really great, and it pairs with all of the other features, which, on the first turn you get to have increased walking speed, you get an additional attack roll, and you get to deal extra damage on the first turn. So, right off the bat, the Gloomstalker is getting higher initiative. It can move further, so it can set up better. It has an additional attack, so after level 5, you'll have 3 attacks. If range, it's the arrows coming basically from the darkness. Get into that in a second. And you get to deal extra damage. The first turn is going to be so much damage. And this is why it just puts the Assassin Rogue to shame. Like, this isn't even a rogue subclass, and it's just crazy how effective it is at the beginning of combat and how good it is at stealth. You get dark vision, but the key here is you are invisible in darkness, even to people with dark vision. This is so overpowered to be. You can hide so easily. You don't even technically need to hide, because if you go into darkness, you're just turning invisible immediately. So you're not really going to be attacked. The enemy might kind of know where you are, but they'll lose track of you because you just need to move into darkness. If you have a party that has dark vision and doesn't need to hold a torch, that's even better, because now no one needs light, so you can just walk around and be invisible in a dungeon by yourself. It's completely broken, to be honest, but I absolutely love the subclass regardless. It's a lot of fun skulking around in the dark, doing insane damage on the first turn. So I love that they added in the game. It's definitely overpowered. And the later level features really make it... They're not overpowered, of course. The level 3 ones are what makes it overpowered. But the later ones are nothing to scoff at either. You get proficiency in wisdom saving throws, which is helpful. Makes you even tankier. Once if you miss, you can re-roll the dice, which is super helpful. And as a reaction, you can impose disadvantage if someone is attacking you. So anyone that plays D&D knows that I have not spoken about one subclass so far. We all knew it was coming. It is the... Where are you? Circle the Moon Druid. This is definitely the most overpowered subclass in the game, and that is because of its signature feature, the combat wild shape. All druids are able to wild shape, and it's a really cool feature of the druid that they can do it. And other subclasses use it in a unique way, like the Circle of Spores use it as basically like charges to like enhance themselves with the spores. But the Circle of the Moon is all about wild, and it is broken. First off, you can wild shape as a bonus action instead of an action, which means the Circle of the Moon Druid is absolutely going to be cast spell and then wild shape immediately. So they can cast a super high level spell, because again, they're high level spellcasters, and then turn into a freaking T-Rex or whatever they want, you know, in the situation. There's a lot of options there as well. You can turn into a snake, you can turn into a rat, you can turn into a flying bird, for whatever you need in the situation. The wild shaping gives you a huge amount of hit points, because you're also able to wild shape into a higher challenge rating monsters. It gets to a point where it's a little bit broken, but you can do lots of damage as well as those beasts, and later on you get unlimited wild shape. So if you have a level 20 Circle of the Moon, you need to disable them as soon as they get out of their wild shape, because they will just, as a bonus action on their turn, they'll just turn into a T-Rex again, and you're just going to get unlimited T-Rexes. That's the most broken part of it. Leading up to that, it's still definitely broken. So, how do you even handle this as a DM? I've had some experience with it, and I did it unsuccessfully. But it took a little bit to figure it out. I was a very new DM at the time. I think I was like probably 4 or 5 sessions in DMing, and you know, the true power of the Circle of the Moon Druid really came forth. And it was very difficult for me to create fights that were balanced for the Circle of the Moon Druid as well as the other one. I had to deal an immense amount of damage to the Circle of the Moon Druid. So if you're DMing, it's perfectly fine that your players will use Circle of the Moon, but just be careful as to how you're creating the combat encounters, because it won't be a challenge for the Circle of the Moon unless you send a lot of minions at. So as the Circle of the Moon Druid is wild shaping into whatever it wants to wild shape into, you send multiple minions after the wild shape Druid, and then the other ones after the other player characters, so that they can have monsters fighting them at a reasonable challenge rating. And the Circle of the Moon Druid has a challenge because most of the beasts don't have great AoE capabilities. A lot of them are single target attacks. So if you give them multiple targets, that is how you exploit and balance out the overpoweredness of the Circle of the Moon Druid. So that's an obvious one. That's why I left it to the end, to be honest, because it's not interesting to talk about it at the beginning. But those are all the subclasses I have for you guys today. I really appreciate you guys watching the video up until this point. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. I have a big kind of, not announcement, but I have a new series of videos that will be coming out every weekend, every Sunday as much as I can. So stay tuned for that. Hit the notification bell to stay tuned for those videos, and see you guys in the next video. Very thirsty talking. And honestly, I've said the word overpowered so many times, it's ridiculous. I gotta figure out another word for it. I guess I'm done the video, and I'm just rambling. Bye.